our God, matchless, endless, love unrestrained. This is our God. Every tribe sing praise and glory, honor and strength unto our God, unto our God. Matchless, endless, love unrestrained. This is our God. Every tribe sing, ayo, 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 wow. Ayo, 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 wow. We sing, ayo, 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 wow. Ayo, 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 wow. Oh, there is no one like our God. No one. There is no one like our God. There is no one like our God. There is no one like our God. Wala kang katulad, O Diyos. Wala kang katulad, O Diyos. No hay nadie como nuestro Dios. No hay nadie como nuestro Dios. There is no one like our God. We sing, there is no one like our God. There is no one like our God. There is no one like our God. Praise and glory, honor and strength unto our God, unto our God. Your matchless, endless, love unrestrained. This is our God. Every tribe sing praise and glory, honor and strength unto our God.
Hi everybody, how you doing? This is Jason Hall. I am the lead pastor of Dream Movement. Excited to be with Brandon Baca today. Brandon is my boss, y'all. So he's like,
Well, we know Jesus is the boss.
Jesus is the boss. He's the leader, you know. Jesus is the leader.
Yeah.
There we go. He's the boss. But so I work with Brandon at Attack Poverty, which is a beautiful organization. And I am excited to announce I am now the director of church mobilization. So
Come on. That's awesome. I'm excited.
wow. I'm so excited. So
Yeah.
this is Dream Movement, and we are a partner of Attack Poverty, and we are also a partner of other organizations as well. But we're excited. We want to highlight Attack Poverty today, and I'm privileged enough to have the CEO of Attack Poverty, Brandon Baca.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm just,
Good.
Jason, I'm so excited. Just watching over the last couple years and seeing Dream Movement come to fruition and reality and what God is doing in you and through the church and in the Sundown area and even beyond. You know, it's
Yes.
awesome to see all of this, what just come up and really
Wow.
the vision really take root and see some fruit from that. So I'm thankful. So thank you for
That's exciting.
all that you're doing
Appreciate
and for
it.
the kingdom and that we get to do that together. It's awesome.
Yes, it's a privilege and an honor.
Absolutely.
I'm just like overwhelmed with joy because we get an opportunity to speak today. And we've been talking about leadership. That's been kind of like the theme for the month. And we've been really digging in. This is a very difficult time with COVID-19 and, you know, job losses and things like racial reconciliation, just various events that have happened in this year. It's been very challenging for many.
Yes.
And I'm very blessed to be in an organization and people that want to make impact in communities during this time. We need Jesus, first of all, and then we need people to serve and to grow. And leadership really needs to step up at this time. You know, so
good. Yeah.
I really asked Brandon to come today because, you know, I really look up to him as a man of God. And I think outside of his position, he's a leader. You know, regardless, there's people that are positional leaders, and because they're in that role, they take on leadership. But I think even outside that you're a leader as well. So that's why I asked you to come on today, and I really respect that, you know, that you don't need a title to be a leader.
That's right. That's
know.
right. That's good. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
'Cause I have some
Okay.
thoughts about
Great.
about what, you know,
Yeah.
are you given leadership?
That's
you know,
good.
things like that. But yeah, we'll talk about
Okay.
that. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
excited.
So everybody, without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Brandon Baca, CEO of Attack Poverty. And I want to ask you just what's your story?
That's good.
Introduce us. Tell us about, are you married with kids? You know, just tell us about yourself.
So I grew up in Texas. So I'm originally from the area kind of in South Texas around Houston. I grew up in a suburb of Houston called Missouri City, first of all. I was born in Sharpstown area, so if you're a Houston native, you know where Sharpstown is. I was born right there at Memorial Southwest, and just spent a lot of time. I played sports growing up. Both my parents worked, so part of my story is that I spent a lot of time in daycare under other individual supervision. But yet, when we had time as a family, it was a really beautiful time. But I learned hard work from my parents, and yet they came from different realities of life and really worked hard. My dad didn't. I was the first person to graduate from college in my family, and so just that alone was significant for us. And but growing up, we had different realities, which I hope we get a chance to talk about too at some point. Just I grew up in a neighborhood that was originally developed by and moved in as the energy boom, and people were moving out to the suburbs from Houston. A lot of white people moved in, and then eventually a lot of black people of color were moving in, and so then there was white flight, and unfortunately my family was a part of that, and so we moved away from that environment and moved into another neighborhood, and so we grew up even further out into the suburbs in Richmond, Texas. So, but I always kind of had this sense that and calling to go away from here. So I went to Houston Baptist University. I met my wife. So I grew up, it's just my mom, my dad, me, and my sister. So there were two of us with our parents. And that's a big part of my story because I was older, separated. So I kind of did things on my own from my sister. She was younger. And so unfortunately we had that growing up, but then we reconnected after we got married, and our families are reconnected, so it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, wow.
But
Awesome.
But going to Houston Baptist University, it's like staying home, like a lot of people go to college, they leave. I just drove down the street, and so anyway, great experience. I actually couldn't get into college because of my grades and SAT. I did well in school, but I didn't test well, and so I was afraid I couldn't go to college. And then as God would have it, someone in our church actually supplied the scholarship, and I didn't know it at the time, but he was one of the founding trustees of the university. He saw what God was doing in me, and he really felt compelled to invest in me and what God was doing. And so I'm just forever grateful for Mr. Kinley for that, to invest in me and my future, because it was in college where God really began to form a lot of my understanding of who he is and my calling. Wow. And so I met Sarah Beth, my wife. So we've been married this year 20 years. We have 3 children. We have a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, and a 9-year-old going on 39. I feel like Ruby, she's just, ruling the world. We got Ruby, Eden, and Asher.
Yes.
And so we've just really been, thankful to the Lord where he's led us and what he's been doing in our life. There was one point in my life where I looked at Sarah Beth and I said, let's get out of here. So she grew up in a ministry home, and her dad has done amazing work in ministry. Her mom as well. And so together they moved a lot. And so she wanted to plant some roots, and I've been planting all the time. I wanted to uproot a little bit and go. But, God showed me that in that moment, the passage where he healed the man with demons. Wow. Jesus healed the man with demons, yes. and that man wanted to go with Jesus. Wow. And Jesus said, no, go home and tell them all the good things that I've done for you. And at that moment, 10 cities were impacted.
Wow.
Not just one man. And so I just thought, man, and so God was really pressing on my heart to stay planted and see what he would do as we stay planted and really stay focused on what God's doing in our life, instead of just wanting to do something. And I realized that was just for me. That wasn't really following the Lord. And so we stayed there, and since then, I've traveled all over the world. I've experienced lots of incredible things, what God's doing in his kingdom all over, but being planted, staying connected, reconnecting to some individuals even from high school and see what God's doing in their life, and inviting them on the journey. And today, in our ministry today, even at Tech Poverty, there's people I've known for 15, 20 years coming on board, being a part of this ministry with us. So it's really exciting to see what God could do if we just stay the course with him.
Yes. Yes.
And so we get fidgety,
Yeah.
right?
True.
And we think,
It's
man,
true.
we got to go, we got to do
Right.
this. And God's saying, hey, I know the plans I have for you.
Wow.
And so let's tap into that, and so.
Man, I want to press into that because what you just said, Brandon, what drew me to Attack Poverty, I started out 4 years ago as a volunteer, just serving. And it was in 2013, I was doing a project, and I wrote down everything that I felt like the vision that God was showing me for my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a lot of work. I'm like, this is a big vision. I can't do it all by myself. And interestingly enough, as I began to serve with Attack Poverty, what I found out was Attack Poverty was already doing it. And so then I didn't have to recreate or create anything from the ground up. And all I did was come alongside the work that was already being done.
That's right.
And it's powerful how God can fulfill the vision in your life. I was hearing all the great things that God has done when you decided to stay planted. So when I started rooting myself in the Lord, it was just like he began to open up these doors and opportunities. And here I am today, 4 years later, really just sitting with you and this journey and realizing that I had the opportunity to travel with this man to Uganda last year, and that was my first time out the country. And so just being, what I think the greatest blessing for me is the stability, is the rooting of myself in the Lord and being a part and rooting myself in an organization with people and building relationships.
Henry Blackaby wrote, and had this philosophy a while back, and basically it's joining God, not asking God to join us, but really joining in with what God is doing. And that's what I love about the journey I've been on, what you're talking about, the journey you're on. I just love that. A lot of times we want to create our own story, our own journey out of independence. But what we need to see is dependence on the Lord. And we weren't made to be alone. We weren't made to do life alone. We weren't made to, go it alone.
Right.
We were made to really join in what God's doing. And he's making all things new again. So let's get on board with that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that's exciting to me. So that way we get to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, and we get to see God do it and use us in the midst.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And with that, I want to really ask you, as you explained your life, and I heard a lot of influence, and I heard God raising you up. I want to talk about leadership. I want to know, what is leadership?
Yeah. That's a big question. What is leadership?
Yeah, what is the leadership?
Oftentimes, for me, Jason, I start with leadership is service. It's like I can't help but go. You've seen this painting before, but we know the story. Jesus is about to die, right? He's about to give his life up.
Yes.
And ultimately, like Paul talks about that, that he humbled himself even to the point of death.
Yes.
And he became human in human form, in human likeness.
Right.
He didn't count equality with God something to be grasped.
Wow.
It's like all of these things, but there's this moment where they gather for this final meal. And I love it because you see this really beautiful act of leadership that's not weak, not proud, but humble with a lot of strength.
Wow.
When Jesus takes off his garment and kneels before the people that he loves, his friends, those he's called into action to join him, and he washes their feet, and you're just like, whoa, what kind of leader does that?
Wow, that's amazing.
And I think, so my first, when people say, what is leadership? I go to that picture in my mind, because I think about what it takes to be a leader is often not what we think culturally it means to be a leader. Does that make sense?
Yes,
so we can
yes,
define
yes.
leadership, but we got to act out in that. And so, what does it take to be a leader? It's not the smartest person in the room. It's not the fix-it person. It's not the person who has all the right answers and command and control. It's a coach. It's someone who's walking with. It's someone who's willing to serve others. It's really someone who uniquely looks at others and says, how can I help you live into your greatest and fullest potential in the way that God has designed you?
Wow.
And so that's what Jesus did.
Yes, yes.
And when we look at the greatest leaders throughout history, around the world, those are the kind of qualities and characteristics that we're seeing. You want to have legacy?
Yes.
You want to have something that lasts beyond you? Then we can't make it about you. It can't be about me, or else it rises and falls with me. Does that make sense? So I start with service.
I love that. That's wow. It's sometimes the opposite of what the world says. You have to be up here. You have to get all this education. And nothing's wrong with those qualities, those things. But man, that's so powerful. The service and the perfect example, Jesus, who I deem the greatest leader that ever walked the earth. So.
Yeah, Ken Blanchard wrote a book, Lead Like Jesus.
Oh, okay.
And
Wow.
a really good book if you want a book to kind of go with the concept there and understanding Lead Like Jesus. And, there's a lot of parables and things that Jesus shared about how to lead and how we start small and have great impact and all of those things. But the principles are just amazing and countercultural in some ways, like you said. Get the education, get the PhD, go do it.
Oh, yeah.
Go
absolutely.
do it, right? Go do it.
Right.
But the heart of leadership is not in the diploma on the wall or in the accolades on the LinkedIn
Right.
or the story
Right.
that's being shared on the news or the book that we wrote. All of those are just tools and things that we leverage for the sake of something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
But if we put those out as the thing, then we've missed what the opportunity is in our leadership and our full capacity.
That's so good.
Because it starts and stops there.
Yes. Right.
It can't go beyond that.
Sounds like it's limited. So with that, I want to ask, what compels you to lead? Why do you lead?
Yeah. I tell people all the time, one of the greatest joys in my life is just like, I could cry, I just get so deeply impacted, excited, moved when I see people live into their potential. So many of us are walking around and we can't see ourselves.
Wow. So true.
We can't see ourselves. We have this broken view and scope because of what we've been told or what someone said or an experience we had. And we forget that God sees us in a whole new way. In a whole different way sometimes when we see ourselves. So how do we see ourselves the way God sees us? How do we see ourselves completely and fully alive?
Wow.
And man, so I love it. I can see that in people and I can go, hey, let me walk with you to help you live into your best self, the self that God has designed you to be. Man, that compels me because all of a sudden we're seeing people come alive. Live into their potential, utilize their all the gifts, talents, and abilities that God's given them. Because He doesn't give us stuff to bury it in the sand. He gives it to us to use and leverage for His kingdom. And so let's use it, Let's do this.
Really, really
let's
good.
not put it on the shelf. Let's not put it behind. And that's often what happens. We get stopped because we have faulty thinking. But the Bible says we need to renew our minds.
Right.
And we can renew our minds. We can make our thinking new again.
Wow.
And also, like fear.
Yes.
I've something else that compels me is I see that many people, we live in a culture full of anxiety and fear.
Right.
But the Bible says that God didn't give us a spirit of fear. He gave us a spirit of power, of love, and sound mind. But all those go together. It's not like just love.
Right,
It's not
right.
just a clear mind. It's not just power. It's
Wow.
power, love, and a sound mind. And so now how do we like craft and create an experience, an environment around individuals where they can live in their full potential, shake off the fear, all the hate, all of that,
Yes.
shake that off, create spaces where we're being made new again. We're renewing the brokenness in our lives and the lives of others around us.
Wow. Wow.
I get excited. I'm gonna start going on that.
No, that's good. We got time, y'all. Hey, y'all, we're getting a PhD right now.
No,
in
we're not.
leadership. You know what I mean? We're getting a PhD. No, this is so good because this knowledge and this depth. I know that you would say it comes from God. So, you I was thinking like as you were sharing that, what kind of situations in the Bible or personal examples you've seen physically in the world that attribute to that leadership, like something that will really help us to really dig into leadership more.
I heard this a long time ago, and I've seen it played out multiple times, but one thing is leaders are learners.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I used to hear one leader in particular used to say, "That's just the way I am. I'm just like that."
Right.
And I'm like thinking, you got no new learning, no transformation, nothing's going to change. You are already fully the way you need to be, the way God intended. That's just the way you are.
Right.
And I thought to myself, man, if you were just the way you needed to be, fully realized, you'd be perfect. You'd be like Jesus, and you're not there. So what's the learning? What's the transformative work that we can continue to be in? And that person, that leader built a whole philosophy around, this is who I am, so deal with, love or leave it kind of thing. And it really damaged a lot of people down the line. Now, he may have done great things in life, but he hurt a lot of people in the process. And so there was a lot of damage behind that. So then you begin to think about, what's the legacy piece of that? What are people talking about?
Right.
The things that are most deeply impactful in our lives are the things that people remember.
Wow.
Not
That's
because
good.
I got a really good job and I got paid a lot, but because that person believed in me, spoke into me, said that, so that's why the pain and heartache, it sits with us. And also when people speak life into us, it sits with us, right?
Yes.
So that's one example of that. I just had to really learn from that and go, okay, I want to be a learner. I want to be able to look in the mirror, hold up the mirror to myself and others and ask the question, how could I continue to be transformed here?
Right.
What can I learn? What's a new learning for me? And so I've changed the word failure. And so some people have an issue with this, like, yeah, there are failures. I get that. There are failures, but I try to use the word learning instead of fail. Like, because I grew up in a home and in a context where and I made a vow that said, don't fail or be a part of anything that fails,
Right.
And so, how's that working out, because we're broken, we're fault, we mess up.
Yes.
We make mistakes. And so, man, how do you not be a part how do you not fail ever? Right. And how do you not, be a part of something that fails? If you've ever been on an athletic team, you've lost before.
Absolutely.
If you've ever been a part of any kind of experience where you took a risk, there's always the potential for it not to work out. So we're going to fail. We're going to be a part of fail. So transition from because what we do is I begin to build identity around that. Like I'm a failure instead of I failed.
Right.
And shame set in. And so I had to really understand that God was saying, you're not a failure, even though you made a mistake. That doesn't define you. But what's the learning here? What did you learn? And so that's why I say leaders are learners. And there's so many examples where, you can like scour the scripture and see where people stood up for what was right. Yes. They stood up. They had deep convictions. Individuals who would not back down. Think about Moses going to Pharaoh. Think about, Nehemiah going to the king. Think about Deborah as a judge. Think about even Mary, the mother of Jesus, taking on this in the presence of God, going, I don't know if I could do this. And the angel saying, there's nothing impossible with God. Wow. And in a moment, she had to say, I'm yours, whatever you ask of me. And so it's this deep, passionate conviction than to live into it, not just for the sake of accomplishment, but because it's calling. Wow. So it's character and calling that really defines our leadership.
That's so good, because I remember situations where, when I first kind of responded to ministry and my calling, I was always feeling this pressing, like, you need to go out there and do. You need to go out there and now be, because you're called, and you need to go get this degree, you need to go this. There were so many boxes to check, but I knew in my heart that my character didn't catch up with my calling yet, so I needed to grow first. And I'm always needing to grow, for a lifetime. But you see, I've been prepared for this moment. There have been a lot of stripping. There have been a lot of pain. There's been a lot of, and I'm sure there's a lot of things you've went through to get to this point. And so when you talked about, so you already referenced it a little bit about how you're equipping leaders and different things. What are some nuts and bolts of that?
So one thing I do, and then I try to challenge other people to do, is find a mentor, someone who's ahead of you in life that you can learn from.
That's good.
And not just someone you can have coffee with and just talk, but someone who's really going to challenge you in your current season, because they've been there, they understand it, and they're going to build that character in you. So find someone ahead of you as a mentor. Find someone or a group of people who's in your peer bracket that you can be meeting with, because the piece of leadership that is lost often is authenticity or transparency. So you need to find a group of people that you can be real with. And go, hey, we're in this. You're in the same place I am in life. Let's talk. Let's bounce this off. And then find someone you can lead, that you can mentor. So if you have that perspective, I just try to challenge people all the time, because if you do that, you're growing, because you better be authentic. You better be real, because you can't teach something that you haven't learned. You can't ask someone to go somewhere that you haven't been. And so if you're leading someone, then you got to have a group of people that you're walking with that's challenging you, and then have a mentor that's kind of bringing you to that next season. So that's one thing. And the other thing, I laugh a lot, because I often find it, I didn't grow up in my home. I didn't grow up as a reader. I could care less about books. I try to find the Cliff Notes every time I was turning around in school. I was trying to double space, triple space, and pick out with the biggest font, But what I'm learning is, and what I have learned is that, learning from others is really a powerful thing. So how are you, what are you reading? And then finding things to read from people that are not like you, different than you, maybe a different ethnicity than you, maybe a different gender from you, maybe a different denomination from you, a different worldview perspective, because it's about learning. So what I find is I meet with people one-on-one, and I go, hey, have you read this book? Here, let me give you this book, or let me, I'm constantly doing that, and never thought I would do that. But as you were learning, and as we're in these relationships, we're in a context where we're being challenged, and we're also challenging others. So there's that's how I equip. And then accountability. And so I'm going to define accountability differently than a lot of times we define it, especially in the church context and the Christian context. I grew up, accountability was reminding me of what I did wrong. Accountability seemed to always be this shame session where it's like, you suck, remind yourself you suck, you're terrible, you're not getting it, you missed the mark, let's own it, and then let's try to do it better next time. And I'm trying to really think through that and redefine accountability in a way that says, look, I'm going to hold you accountable to something. I want to remind you of who you are, not how you messed up.
Right.
But let's remind you
Mm-hmm.
of who you are.
Wow. That's so
Let's remind you of where you're headed. Let's remind you of what you're called to.
wow.
And then let's together recommit to that place.
That's
Because
good.
we dwell on what we talk about. What we talk about, we create. And all of a sudden, that's the world we live in. And so the language really creates the world we live in, because we're co-creators with God. And so he's made us in his image. He spoke the world into being. So a lot of times as we speak, we're participating with God in what he's creating in and through us. And so our language is powerful.
Yes.
So if we keep saying, I'm failed, I'm not going to do it, I can't, that's why one of our programs even in our ministry is You Can Academy. Not You Can't Academy or You Shouldn't Academy or You Won't Academy. It's You Can Academy, because the Bible says we can do all things through Christ.
Yes.
And so that's accountability, is really reminding, hey,
Yes.
we understand that we're broken,
Right.
but let me remind you of who you are.
That's
And
so
who God sees you as,
right.
and where you're headed, where he's called you to go.
Wow.
Let's stay on course. Let's go.
Yes.
And so those three things. So leaders are learners. So be in those types of relationships. Read. Really build your repertoire of a knowledge base. Don't just get narrowly focused on what you're reading.
Right.
If you're only reading from one network or one group of authors or whatever, then you're going to get a really narrowed, focused mindset.
Right.
And you're not going to be expanded there. And then as we walk, as we hold one another accountable, let's remind each other of who we are and the capacity in which God is creating in us to be.
Wow, that's so good. That, that's a wealth of knowledge right there. It's so good, because what I hear is, and I want you to talk about next, is in the work, in the community. Man, this is so good about, wow. I'm feeling, about the equipping, the training leaders. So I want to talk about with Attack Poverty, what's the mission, what's the vision? How do we implement this in communities? How is this happening, when it's so much impact that's being done? How is it being done? Tell us about that.
So thanks, Jason, for asking. So this is a fun part.
Oh, yeah.
For me, because
Let's go.
it's all fun. I love this topic of leadership, because it's really, there's been leaders that have impacted me in such an incredible way.
Wow.
And part of that is translated into what we do.
Yes.
So the vision is empower people to attack poverty in their life and community. We do that through the mission of strengthening under-resourced communities through spiritual growth, education, revitalization, and basic needs. We say we awaken potential and provoke transformation.
That's good.
And it is awesome. So we get in there, we listen, we go door to door, we sit with people, we understand the heartbeat of the community. We ask the question, what's working and what can be even better? Oftentimes under-resourced communities, the poor, marginalized, they're overlooked. And we begin to develop processes that actually leave out sections of our community. And we say, no, we're going to go right in, because we believe something. We believe that there are assets and capacity just waiting to be developed right in each of our communities where we serve. And so, and quite honestly, it's awesome, because we reduce vulnerability, we increase capacity, and just great things begin to happen and take shape as a result. And so, how do you lead that process is the question. First of all, we find people of peace.
Yes.
Like, who's the person of peace? What's going on? We learn, and then we begin to build strategies with the community, for the community.
Wow.
And because we believe that the answers lie within our communities. We've just decided as a culture and as a people that, they're poor, or there's a lot of crime, or it's not as developed, so they don't have the answers, they don't have the resources, they don't have the capacity to do. But the truth is, that's a lie. And so we believe poverty tells lies.
Yes.
It's really about brokenness. It's not about stuff.
Right.
If it was about stuff, we could have bought a bunch of stuff. We could have had all the stuff in the world put into all of our communities in the right way, and poverty would be gone.
Right.
But what we believe is poverty is really about brokenness. So poverty exists on both sides of the tracks, by the way. Because it's about brokenness, how we, in our relationship with God, how we see ourselves, how we relate to one another and the world around us. So how we steward our environment, how we steward our relationships, how we see ourselves, how we're relating to God. All that, there's brokenness in the midst of it.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is there's a poverty that results.
Wow.
Because our systems are broken because they're made of broken people.
Yes.
And so when we become restored, our systems become restored. And we begin to enact new systemic justice instead of injustice as a result.
Wow.
But it's hard work.
Oh, yeah.
Because these systems are powerful.
Yes.
And you got to break through. And so we have to really invite others along in the journey. We don't take the voice from the voiceless. We work to empower,
Yes.
to regain our voice.
Wow.
We don't give dignity. We help you discover who you really are.
Yes.
You have dignity.
So good.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
yes.
we kind of work from that angle. Relationship wins. We're
Yes.
walking together alongside of one another, seeing our communities restored, moving from surviving to thriving. One relation. We say we're about the whole person and the whole community.
Wow.
So that's how we lead through that. And so it's awesome. Sometimes we get called to the table with our leaders of the community. Hey, how can we do this? Should we do this? Should we do that? And we've seen sidewalks implemented.
Yeah.
We've seen police officers, really come around and serve in new ways. We've seen development happen that's really been beneficial to the community, not taking away from the community. It's been awesome. And it's not just here in Houston, which is a big part of our work, but around the world,
Wow.
in Uganda, East Asia, India. I mean, it's been an amazing journey to really see the poor empowered.
Right. Man, that's amazing. I hear that servant leadership thing that you talked about in the beginning about Jesus and how it's being implemented in communities. And then I see the hierarchy and the thinking you're better than somebody else taken away, but yet how can we walk alongside? And I hear how earlier you defined leadership, and I see that visually as you explain the mission and vision of Attack Poverty. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we're not trying to, I heard it one time like this said, we're not trying to be the hero, we're trying to be the hero maker.
That's right.
We're trying to come in and empower people for their own communities and own it and ownership and raise people up. And it seems like to me you get joy out of seeing people raised up.
Yeah. Communities reimagined and redefined and just hope just kind of rise up. And that's what I love, even just about the name Dream Movement.
Oh, yeah.
It's like God puts a dream, but then there's movement with that dream. It doesn't stop with just dreaming. There's a vision, and then there's action associated with vision, and then all of a sudden we come alive in the process. You see what I'm saying? And so that's what we see in communities, man. People who thought they couldn't learn English or get a better job. That just the whole world just flips upside down. Individuals who didn't know how to support their children in their education now leading and inviting others into the process. We see community members serving community. We talk about COVID-19 right now. We had to. Can I talk about this?
Yeah, I want to actually hear what has been the impact.
Yeah.
What has Attack Poverty done in the midst of
Absolutely.
COVID, and what is some of the impact that's going on? Because that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, so we're in 9 or 10 different communities around the world on 3 different continents, and right here in the kind of greater Houston area, and around the world too. But we typically we have child services, after school programs, mentoring, we have summer camps and reading programs for kids. We do adult education, ESL classes, computer classes, financial, we help with job, we help you get your GED, all the, man, we had to pause all that.
Right.
Because we couldn't gather. We couldn't have people come together. We couldn't have kids come together. We couldn't do all that. And so what we did instead is we said, what are the basic needs of our community right now? And so we pivoted. We we flipped the script and we said, look, we're going to just pause our normal programs, and we're going to open up our resource centers, our locations, and really serve our communities during the season.
Wow.
So we've been supplying food and hygiene supplies, kids packs, financial assistance.
Wow.
Man, I mean, some kids are getting like new computers and stuff in their
Yes.
homes so they can still stay engaged in the educational process. Providing a little hope. We think, oh, we're just given food. It's like rice, or it's something like it's a, non-perishable. There's produce, and it's like what? But that, at one moment, I remember a story of a kid. They were coming up in the line, and the mom was sharing the story that the kids were dreaming about the type of produce they were going to get. They were hoping they would get strawberries.
Yes.
When you're in this moment, what we forget sometimes is that it's the little things with love that have great impact.
Yes.
And so it was like coming through the line, all of a sudden they get the food, and the kid looks back and they see the produce and they see strawberries, and they're like, wow, strawberries. And the mom just begins to cry because there's a way to provide for her kids in this moment that provides hope. And so that's what we've been doing. So since then, in the greater Houston area, we've served over 100,000 people, and which is more than we've served. We served that many people in 17 weeks is more than we've served in the last 9 years.
Wow.
So God is on the move. We're just really working. It's a lot of collaborative partnerships. We've had so many partners. I think close to 150 different partners come alongside of us, and to do this work, I mean, it has been massive. We've seen 1,300 plus families in Uganda get food. We've seen like 7 or 8 villages impacted in India as a result of this work. We've seen hundreds of thousands of people in East Asia getting, the PPE mask and all the different items that we're supplying. And now we're working on full water coverage for a whole village. In the mountains that, are kind of forgotten people that we're saying, no, we're not going to forget about you.
Yes.
In East Asia. And so God is just really just challenging us in this moment to say, look, just keep going with me. Just keep going with me. Let's stay the course. But in the midst of this crisis, I mean, there's grief, there's despair, there's dissension, there's challenge, And what we're saying is, what if there's hope?
Yes.
What if we could thrive in the desert? What if we could actually thrive in the winter season?
Wow.
What if the winter isn't a time to just hold up and isolate, but what if there could be moments of hope and thriving in the midst of our challenge and crisis?
Wow.
And that's what we're saying. We're offering that. And we're being challenged ourselves, and we're also challenging our communities that you can thrive in this season.
It's so
You can do
good.
that.
Oh my goodness. People are looking for leadership right now.
Yes.
More than ever.
Yeah.
And I heard you say something earlier that really struck me. You said people remember when the way that you kind of made them feel or the way that you helped
That's right.
them. So it goes back to saying about, like I said, accolades are good. They're great to get these impacts of education, and all those things are beautiful. But it sounds like as we're helping people, empowering people in their life and communities with attack poverty and different organizations and coming alongside, it all just sounds like a servant. I just keep hearing that servant leadership theme. And also, it seems like that God is pleased when we do that.
Yeah.
And what I want to say is, and what I want to ask is, I know that, the church has had to close their doors essentially because of what's been going on, and especially in our area of Houston. There's a lot of, so we're unable to gather in person, and we got to do a lot of virtual things and everything that we do, and a lot of things. How does the Attack Poverty see the church? How, what is the church? What should the church lead? Give us a challenge with the church. What should we do in this season?
I'm going to back up a second and just remind us that there's a lot of discord. And, the church has been, in some ways, right in the middle of that discord for lots of generations.
Yes.
It's been the most racially divided
Wow.
group of people. It's been the most segmented group of people. We've institutionalized ourselves to and elevated in a way of competitiveness. And so, man, you know, in COVID-19, it's like all that's gone away. We go online now. Anyone can visit any church around the world, and we get there. You know, and we're getting instruction, we're getting connection, and we're trying to figure out how do we build community. And what I would just say is that, you know, we have to reimagine our understanding of who and what the church is in this season. Just like as an organization, we had to flip the script and pivot. The church is doing that, and the churches that survive, we're learning, you know, we're seeing all these studies that a majority of people may not come back to a physical location for a long time.
It's true.
But the church now is being called and challenged to go.
Yes.
And so we're kind of like looking at that and going, hey, church partners, come on.
Yes.
Come on. So we're having to flip our view scope from inward to outward, like major.
Wow.
And then the other thing I would say to the church is unify yourself. Come together. We're better together. So we've been using that hashtag a lot.
Yes.
And I know that there's other groups and organizations and affiliations using that hashtag, because we really see that there's something powerful that we tell our culture, that what's possible because we can collaborate, and not just collaborate because we showed up in the same room together, but that we're actually looking for ways to have mutual benefit as we partner together for the sake of something bigger than ourselves.
Yes.
And so how does the church, man, let's show up for others. Let's find ways to serve our community in practical, tangible ways. And be reminded that the gospel is best viewed in action.
Yes. That's so good.
You know, so like,
Wow.
I love you so much, I'm going to show up for you.
Wow.
I believe in this so much that God has sent his son to redeem the world, that I'm going to be a part of that reconciliation process by entering into hard conversations and calling others to do the same.
Wow.
You know, that's how, man, the church is going to redefine itself and be really a powerful force for our culture, to where the culture's not leading the church can lead the culture. And God may be giving us an opportunity in the midst of this season to say, look, let's flip the script.
Right.
And let's lead out in a new way so that we, you know, reimagine ourselves to go.
Wow.
And so now, like, look,
My goodness.
man, let's go to the poor. Let's go to the marginalized. Let's really care about those things. Let's redefine what that looks like in our city. Homelessness is an issue. The church can solve that. You know, affordable housing is an issue. The church can solve that. Food deserts are an issue. The church can solve all of that.
Yes.
Let's collectively put our minds and our hearts and our capacity together to really care about the things that God cares about, to see God make all things new again.
Wow.
So his kingdom is coming on earth like it is in heaven. That's our job, man.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what we get to. So you're the church, I'm the church. We're, you know, I love that shirt. I am the movement. You know, you can tell I get passionate about this because, you know, Pastor never sleeps, I guess, or something. Keeps talking. But the truth is, I think this is a really awesome opportunity for the church.
I love it.
And, you know, we've seen this all over the world. In East Asia, the church is thriving underground.
Wow.
You know, we see that in India, the church is thriving in oppression.
Wow.
I mean, we see that in Uganda, the church is thriving in lockdown. You know, so like we need to thrive.
Yes,
and we have opportunities to do so. And man, you know, generosity, servant attitude and heart, flexibility, and just a risk-taking spirit for the kingdom. And that's where the church is at. And I'm just telling you, it's awesome. It's going to blow up.
Amen. I agree with that. We was last Saturday, Dream Movement, we was out there with Friends of Sundown in North Katy, and we was doing a prayer walk. And it was amazing. We were walking the streets, we were praying. There were some community members, people around, and it was just like, to declare, like you spoke about earlier, leadership is speaking life. We began to speak life over members. And we had the principal out there of the school, Southern Elementary. She was out there praying and walking with us. We had the leaders out there
I love it.
of the community. That's what it's about, right?
Yeah,
and it was just so amazing. And she was just in a vulnerable place, and she was just declaring over her community. And then there was a revitalization project outside the school, and she was digging, with the shovels along with the team, Friends of Sundown, and other volunteers and people with hearts and other church partners. So that's what it's about. You're right, Brandon. It's time to roll up the sleeves in the church, and God has dispatched the church.
Come on. I love
He's
it.
dispatched the church in the season.
I love it.
Which is the people.
Yeah,
And so your church might be in Walmart, your church might be in a local community, it might be in a grocery store. Wherever God is sending you, you are the sending agent from Christ. So, man, this has been so good. I just, we're going to have to do part 2, y'all.
Yeah, I know.
Part
Let's do
2
it
is
again.
coming. But let me end it on this note. How can we support your work? Where can we find you? How can we find
so
you?
there's, all social media outlets at Attack Poverty, attackpoverty.org. You can go our site. And so, we're just search Attack Poverty online and you got it. Attackpoverty.org,
Awesome.
Facebook at Attack Poverty, on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. So, come alongside of us, volunteer, get on board. Let's do this together. Let's see our communities transformed and go from surviving to thriving together in the name of Jesus for his kingdom and for the blessing of the people around us. Let's do it.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming in
I love
tonight.
it.
All right, God bless y'all. Thank you again from Dream Movement, and we'll see y'all next time.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
I've got dreams, unshakable. You can't break them, no. You can't take them, no. I've got dreams, unshakable.